to the Go Low Auto Podcast. I'm Jason, and this week's another solo cast. First and foremost, a little late, it's Thursday. I know I said I was going to get a video every Monday, but I wanted to make sure I still made one this week, and I figured late was better than never. So happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a great day with your family and friends. Eat all the food. Rumor is diets don't count on holidays. Calories aren't there, so enjoy. And today we'll jump right in with some automotive news. This week I wanted to talk about mid-engine cars. Are front-engine cars dying? Is it a dying breed in terms of top performance cars? The 2020 Corvette, for years actually now, it's been rumored that the new Corvettes are going to be mid-engine. This last ZR1, from what everyone has said, has kind of reached the peak of their capabilities with a front-engine car. So the Corvette is definitely going mid-engine. We know this. But I've also heard rumors that the Viper is going to be making a comeback in 2021 or 2022 possibly, and there's rumors of mid-engines there, as well as a V8. Now they didn't specify, depending on what article I've read, and it's all just rumors at this point, but some articles said it's going to be a front engine but behind the rear axle to give it more balance and make it a mid-engine. I've seen some renderings where it was a true mid-engine with the engine behind you. I've also read that Subaru is working on a hybrid that would be a mid-engine car. That one seems the least likely out of the rumors I've read, just because Subaru's kind of built a brand as, just a reliable, safe family car. They had the BRZ, which was fun, and they have the STI, but the sports car doesn't really seem like that's going to be in their wheelhouse right now. But in general, it seems to be something that keeps popping up. Whenever there's a rumor about a new car, there also seems to be a rumor that it's going to be a mid-engine. And this also kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about, where possibly too much horsepower in cars, which seems crazy, especially when I was growing up, all you wanted was more power. But the flip side was, when I first got into cars, if you had 500 horsepower, you were the king of the block. I mean, that was a substantial amount of power, and it's like, now if a car comes with 500, we're kind of jaded about it. We're like, oh, only 500? And I know this might seem a little contradictory, because I was complaining that the Super might not be enough horsepower a couple weeks ago, but we're talking 335, that's not a crazy amount. But cars are getting so fast, they have so much horsepower, and from everything I've seen and read about the ZR1, unless you know how to drive, that car can get real scary real quick. It's 751 horsepower. It's got a lot of traction control aids and driving aids to make it drivable, but if you turn that all off, that car could get real dangerous real quick, and the average person isn't going to have track training. People who buy that are more than likely going to be enthusiasts, so you would hope that they would have some driving experience, but there's no guarantee. And it just really makes me wonder if the mid-engine is going to make it more controllable. Is it just too much power? Is it just we're getting to a point where there's too much car? Because manufacturers for sure are chasing numbers. They're chasing the horsepower stats. They're chasing the track times. It seems like, 2 or 3 times a year now there's a new Nurburgring record. The 918 smashed the record. And then the Porsche GT2 RS beat that record. And now there's the Performante too, and now there's the Aventador SVJ, which just set another record. Corvette had a impressive Nurburgring, and manufacturers are building cars specifically for that particular track in general, and also just to have the numbers. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, which it brought up a good point, where it's like even something like a Dodge Demon, which it's advertised as running 9s off the lot, and it's true. But this is that's a prep track, that's perfect conditions. The average person takes a Demon to a no prep day or even a street race. It's like that all of a sudden becomes an 11, maybe mid 11-second car. It's too much power. You can't put it down unless you're at the track, it's fully prepped, and the conditions are right. Now 9s from the factory at that price point is amazing. but is it more fun than, let's say something that's 400 horsepower and more streetable? Because at least for me, and I think for most people who would be watching this, we're going to use our cars the most in the street, not at the track. The track is something that you're going to go to occasionally, and it's going to be really fun, and it's awesome to see what you can put down. But you want a car that's more streetable. And that's where I worry cars are just getting to a point where it's just become this horsepower race, and it's a mad dash for whoever can have the most power. Now maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the new ZR1, once it goes mid-engine, is going to be less of a monster, and it's going to be more dialed in, and it's not going to be as wild on the track. But I also will miss the Corvette being the Corvette has always been the front engine car that it is. It's gonna be weird to have, if they have front engine options and mid engine options, I'm really into that. I think that'd be really cool. But if they fully switch it over to mid engine, it's, in a sense, it's almost becoming a whole new car. And this is kind of like what we talked about with the Supra. Is it even a Corvette still, or should they have just named it something else? Should it have become its own model line? Car companies, manufacturers seem dead set on keeping, branding. This also relates back to what Tim and I talked about with the four-door Mustang. I think people are so against the idea of the four-door Mustang because they called it a Mustang. If they had called it a Ford Falcon, or if they had called it something completely new, I think everyone would have been on board with a four-door performance sedan from Ford, because the only thing that Ford has had is the Taurus SHO in terms of sedans, and it's like that wasn't really that cool. It's not even what it used to be. But everyone's like, as soon as they hear four-door Mustang, I think 90% of people are gonna be like, just no. No, why are you gonna do that? Let's not do that. And I think the same is how I'm feeling about the mid-engine Corvette, because I grew up loving Corvettes. And it's like, if it only becomes mid-engine, then it's not even a Corvette. And then if you're going to have a variance where you can get the standard model and front engine in the ZR1 in a mid-engine, why not just make that its a whole new line? Why not build a brand around your new mid-engine supercar? Because that's what they're trying to create, is a Chevy supercar. I think manufacturers cling to names too much. It's like Mitsubishi came back with an Eclipse as a crossover. And it's absolutely just why? It's absolutely not an Eclipse. An Eclipse was, it made famous in the Fast and the Furious as well, in the original movie. It was one of the most iconic cars of the early 2000s because of Fast and the Furious. And it was a fun JDM two-door sports car. It's not a four-door, family hauler, soccer mom crossover. At least it shouldn't be. But these manufacturers seem to be thinking that if they just stick the name that has worked in the past on it, that it'll work out. And maybe it will. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think any car enthusiast would probably agree with me that it's just these manufacturers are clinging to the name. And I think it's a bummer to see. Like, I'm very excited about the mid-engine Corvette. I can't wait to see how it performs. I can't wait to see if, they get it one step closer to being a supercar. But I think I'd be more okay with it if it had a different name. I think we'd all probably be more on board with the Mustang if it wasn't called the Mustang, if it had a different name. I think nobody is going to like the four-door SUV crossover Eclipse because it's not at all an Eclipse. And I don't know, me personally, I just don't like crossovers, so I have zero interest in that car. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I'd love to hear in the comments down below. Maybe I'm off, but would it be better for companies, like, would it be better if the new Supra wasn't called a Supra because it doesn't even have a Toyota power plant? Would the Corvette be better off being called something completely new? And what do you think about all the car companies going to mid-engine? Is this cool? Because mid-engine cars were always, the minority, and that made them special. Is it going to become less cool if all sports cars go to mid-engine? Then the next thing I wanted to talk about in today's podcast was just a little bit more about my vision for what Go Low Auto should be, what I'm trying to accomplish, what I want to do. Obviously, I love doing the podcast, and I want to make this as interactive as possible. That's why I put it on YouTube as well. The comment section, I want to get feedback. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you guys think, what you guys want to talk about. And I've really, as I said previously, I really want to make this a community. As I've gotten older, I've thought back to where I started in cars. Back when I first got into cars, I was heavily into forums. And forums, they were a double-edged sword. They were a great thing. There were some forums that I was a part of that I really loved the community there. I met some of the people, obviously, in real life at meets and get-togethers and built friendships, and it was amazing. But forums were also super toxic in that anything that went against the norm or against the grain was heavily criticized and ridiculed. For example, like when I had my Dodge SRT4, there was basically an accepted path of what your mods were supposed to be, the order they were supposed to happen in, and it wasn't like a set rule, and obviously some, deviation off the path was okay. But whenever people tried to really kind of do something unique or different or go a different route, I remember I got an electronic boost controller before I got a wastegate, and I got flamed, and everybody was telling me I was going to blow my car up, and it was the dumbest thing I ever did. Never had an issue. I ran the same boost levels as what everyone else ran, knew what was safe, had a bass tune on it, upgraded the ECU. It was fine. And I kept up with all of the cars that went wastegates first and never did a boost controller, and we just went different routes to accomplish the same thing. But I was heavily criticized for it, and it was somehow not accepted. And I see it still. Car communities have always been against each other. Import versus domestic, and drag versus autocross, and stance is dumb, and VIP is dumb, or drag is dumb. They can't even turn. I basically just came up with Go Low Auto because I love cars. I respect any build. Like, I've never been into lowriders, but I can understand someone put a lot of time and effort into them, and their passion is just as strong for their car as it is for someone who builds a full-on drift car or a full-on drag car. Everyone's passion is there, and we're all passionate about the same thing. It's just slight variations in it. So what I wanted to do with Go Low Auto is I want to build a place where we can all come together. I really want to make it a community where we can all encourage each other. Just because you drift and someone else drags doesn't mean that you can't support each other's builds. You can't even give input or advice, or you might not be as knowledgeable, but you can still give your opinion. And I think positive input, it's good for everybody, because the internet can become such a negative place. And I really wanted to build Go Low into a place where we can all, bounce ideas off of each other, support each other. We can all help each other. I know I'm not the only person with a YouTube, and I know other people would like to grow their Instagrams. We can all help each other do that. We're all part of the same community because we all love cars. And in the grand scheme of the world, the car community isn't that huge. It's pretty massive, but it's not one of the biggest things out there. And, we're all in this same thing. We all love the same stuff. We all love, for the most part, we all love, fast cars, loud engines, spinning tires, going sideways. Or even if you're just into going low and slow, you still like to hear the roar of an engine, you can still respect someone that's ripping, down the drag strip. So that's my ultimate goal with this. I just wanted to explain that a little bit better. I'm gonna end this video there. This is gonna be a little bit of a shorter episode just because it's Thanksgiving, but I wanted to make sure that I still got an episode out. I'm really trying to hold myself to this. I've got another episode coming Monday, hopefully with another guest host. We'll see what I can get lined up. I'm working on that now. But again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Any topics that you want to hear about, any topics you want to be discussed here. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment. It really helps the channel. Give a follow on Instagram if you don't already. It's Go Low Auto. There's also Go Low Auto on Facebook. Facebook's not as active, I know that, but if you want to check that out, there's a community section there as well. And yeah, that'll do it. I'll talk to you guys next week. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Take it easy.